right, I think we're gonna start once more. Welcome, and apologies for the late start. Bon appetit, happy Memorial Day, and Ramadan Mubarak to those who are celebrating. Thanks again. As we all know, mental health is such an important issue to our community, and we want to take action. We don't want to sit around and just wait for somebody else to do what we're supposed to do, take care of ourselves. I think we celebrated the president, John F. Kennedy, who said, ask not what your country can do for you. So ask not what your community or your county could do for you, but what we as community members could do for our county and for our own people. So I'm going to introduce you to Mrs. Harriet Shangaraya, and she is our chair for the African Affairs Advisory Group. The African Affairs Advisory Group meets here every second Thursday of the month, and we are an open forum, an open advisory group, and we advise the county government on issues specific to the African immigrants. Harriet, please come.
Thank you very much, Josephine, and thank you everyone for being here this morning. I definitely could not agree more that mental health is very important part of our lives. Not only that, is such a huge issues. When I say huge issues in our communities, you might have a picture maybe out there in our communities, but I'm standing here as a community member, and it's been a big problem with my family, my friends, almost every door. And you look at it, you're so desperate. You can't find any help. If anything, back then, you don't just want to find help. You want to hide it. You don't want to share. You don't want your neighbor to know. You don't want your church members to know. So you start isolating yourself because you're dealing with it. At the end of the day, not only that is affecting you, it's affecting your family, your spouse, your children, your friends. They're wondering, why are you withdrawing from us? And at some point, you can't hide it anymore. And you can't allow it to continue running your life. So I thought enough is enough. We're going to speak about it. We're going to find solutions. We're going to address it. We're going to be a voice and make sure that we are accessing whatever resources available, not only for us as a family, but for everyone in the community. So we can eliminate the stigma, because I, for one, myself, originally from Tanzania, I can tell you so many times my mother will throw the holy water in my house and cast the devil, and you can see just the beliefs that this mental health is associated with spirit, or maybe there's something that you did, maybe the elderly, maybe you have to slaughter goats or whatnot. So we want to eliminate all the stigma, have people really be able to speak about it in a level that we can understand also is part of a disease. If any other part of your body is susceptible to an illness, so is your brain. So we accept and acknowledge it, and we want to speak it out. So once we establish that, then we can at least find solutions. So I'm very happy to have everyone here, and without further ado, I wouldn't want to take more time. I know that we wanted to have at least be able to dialogue a little bit before we speak officially, but I want to just welcome one of our community liaison here from the county, Daniel Koroma, who we couldn't have this without him. So we appreciate and thank you, Mr. Daniel. Welcome.
Hello, good morning again. Assalamu alaikum to my Muslim brothers and sisters, and I know this started Ramadan already, so I'm glad to see our clergy here. Imam Mohammed from the Muslim Community Center, Reverend Kennedy, thank you so much for coming. I bring you greetings from our county executive, our county government. This issue is one that is of importance to the community, and as Josephine and our chair has said, as important to the county as well. In fact, that's why we have Dr. Raymond, who is here from the county's Health and Human Services. Can we please thank him for coming this morning? And And so he is in charge of the behavioral health division. He's a division chief in the county's Health and Human Services Department. HHS is our largest department, and they handle so many, not only from mental and behavioral health, but also aging and disability, in terms of all the safety net services that our community members need, because one is usually connected to the other. And so as we have these experts who, this is one thing I like about this advisory group that motivates me, is that when they say they want to do something, it's not only a one-time thing. So this is the second time that we're having this dialogue, which means that, again, the word is getting out, but not only that, we're taking it in terms of to the next level, not only identifying what the issues are, but more importantly, how do we build partnerships, but also collaborate with other people. So on behalf of the county government, I really want to thank all of you. I know some of you came from out of town. I see my sister from Philadelphia. Thank you so much for coming as far as you've come. Dr. Akua, you've always been a resource. And of course, Rachel, thank all of you for your time. We know that this is, you are the experts, and it's good to continue to really inform the community about the resources that are out there. We want people to know that the county government is behind you when it comes to mental and behavioral health. As I say, our division chief is here. We want you to know that the stigma should go. This should be one of those conversations at the dinner table that people should have. We want you to know that the support that we say we offer is not only through our mouth, but through resources as well. And some of those resources you will learn about. But again, if you go to the county's website, you reach out to the division, you would get access to every one of these resources. If you live in Montgomery County, you should not be afraid to access services. Our county executive has gone beyond and above, making sure that the right leaders are in place. So Health and Human Services, Umar Aliwalia has been just a phenomenal leader. But again, we have, as I say, Dr. Raymond as well, who is there as the division chief for health and behavioral health. So you have people who you can get access to, which in some places we know is difficult. But in Montgomery County, you have access to our leaders. And they come to you. They don't wait for you to come to them. So please make yourself avail to all the services we offer. If you are a county resident, you should not have a barrier to accessing services in the county. Again, Daniel Karoma is my name. Again, if you need to reach me at any time, if you go to the county website, all of our emails and our phone numbers are on the county website. So there's not a county employee that you'd want to reach that you should not be able to reach. I know Dr. Raymond is smiling because that means we're going to be getting more phone calls, which is fine. Our paychecks are brought to you by the taxpayer. That's why we are paid. So please, again, reach out to us, and thank you so much again. Let's welcome our panelists, and Josephine, thank you for your leadership as well.
So we're going to get straight down to business, and we're going to start with Dr. Asare. And Dr. Asare is going to do the scientific breakdown of mental disorders, genetic, social, biological. I'll ask our panelists to please give us a 101 Idiot's Guide to Mental Health. So when you speak with us, please speak in the layman's words so we get it, so it's not so difficult. Thank you so much. So I'll give a brief, I was actually supposed to print your bio, but then maybe introduce yourself briefly, what you do, and then we can take it. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing today? Excellent. Lovely. I'm trying to see how I feel about what's going on. Why are there like 15 seats right here? I'm just wondering. I'm going to need y'all to move up, and I'm not going to start until y'all move up. So, it's up to you. If we want to start or we don't want to start.
I won't bite.
Oh, I know you won't. Don't worry about it. I got you if you do. I got you. All right. Thank you. Some of you guys are obedient. Some of you guys are not. I will note this. So my name is Dr. Equia G. Asari. I am originally from Ghana, West Africa, Black Star Nation, the continent. And I am a psychiatrist by training, a healer by birth. So I think that is enough about me. But let's talk about mental health, and let's talk about mental illness, and let us not be afraid. Because that is what people are. They are frightened. They are absolutely, completely, and totally terrified about mental illness. Why? Well, let's think about it. It wasn't until recently that we even had the ability to look inside the human body. And before we had the ability to look inside the human body, people had hypotheses about what was inside here. And for some cultures, it was even taboo to even cut open a body. So nobody really knew what was happening until we had more of the modern medicine. And we were actually able to open up the body, look at the anatomy, and begin to do research on chemicals and cells and receptors and what's going on. And that was when we began to understand that it's not scary what's inside here. But let's pause and think about what's inside here. It is a brain, yes, but it is very difficult to open the brain and see the mind, from which we have reasoning, from which we have emotionality, from which our personality kind of pops out from, for some people's perspective. So if you can't really open up a brain and look at the mind and see, okay, my mom, she really likes peanuts. Is that somewhere in here? I don't see that. So we still have a little bit of hesitancy because we can't really see what makes the mind and what makes us. So there's still a little bit of fear because if you can't look in it and you can't see it, then some people can't understand it. 1. 2, when we think about mental illness, when we think about mental health, it really is about the totality of who we are, how we think, how we see the world, how we interact with one another, how we perceive the way people are interacting with us. It is all part of our personality and our character and our traits, and it's all one. So when you have a mental illness, it affects all of that. And therefore you feel as if you are losing the integrity of who you are. And that is a frightening, frightening thing. And then your family and your friends who don't really know what's going on are a little scared, don't want to touch it because they're a little scared, because then it brings back to their mind what could be happening with them. Could I have this? Well, I kind of act like this sometimes, and I don't act like this, and oh my gosh, and they start to pull away, and they begin to create a culture of deadly silence where nobody wants to talk about what's really going on. So, all of these things now have someone who is experiencing this, and they can't turn to anyone because man is a social being. And we need people. And now we can't turn and we can't touch anybody. And what's happening inside us doesn't always make sense. So now what? We can't find hope inside us, and we can't find hope outside us. What do we do? The reason why I talk about this is because these are some of the reasons why mental health and mental illness is so difficult to discuss. And it is key, it is vital that we understand these basic things, even before we know where it comes from. We need to understand the context we're in. And we need to understand we are warriors for the light. Every single one of you in here is a warrior for the light. And you may not think of yourself as a warrior. But when I say warrior, I mean someone who goes to battle. And it may not be an actual physical battle. It's not one of these, huzzah! It may not be that. But it is battling the silence, the stigma, the pain around mental illness. So do you accept the charge that you are warriors of the light? Yes. Okay, excellent. Now we can really delve in. Biopsychosocial. Think about these 3 words. Bio, say it with bio. Psycho. Social. I am a psychiatrist, meaning I am a medical doctor, but I believe in the lightness of life. So just because I'm light doesn't mean I'm trite. So just want to put that out there because some people might look at me and say, She's a little kind of energetic and wild up there. But what I have to say is very serious, and I believe that if it is palatable, it is easier to understand. So bio, the root word, and I love etymology, which means looking at the breaking down of a word to its basics and where it comes from, because it helps you understand the meaning behind it. So when we say bio, we automatically think life. So when we are talking about mental illnesses, what we have is this concept of the biopsychosocial model, meaning that mental illness is a complex thing that comes from the biology of the human, the life, the psycho, meaning the reasoning, the emotional influences, the personality, and the social. The French call it milieu, that is the environment in which a person is in. And I'll briefly go through each of them. Bio, life, your genetics. What came through your family from your mother and your father's side within this beautiful thing that we call DNA is basically a coding for who we are, how we look, the hair color we have. You may change your hair to blonde, but that's not really the way it was before, you see. Right? But how we come out when we're birthed, that is genetics. Certain propensities that we have to do certain things, it's all encoded in our DNA, okay? So we have our genetics, but then we also have our birth environment, which is what happened while we were in the process of being molded in our mother's wombs, right? Because there are some situations that can cause stress or some inflammatory responses or perhaps toxins or alcohol and drugs that can affect the birth environment, the womb of the mother, the womb that the mother has for the child. Point, put a quarter in here. Please note, I am not blaming mothers. And I am not blaming fathers. I am talking about a complex construct of factors that come together to create something, okay? And I'm just teasing it apart. So that's an example of the birth environment. For instance, some of you may have heard of, I remember in the 80s there was the cocaine crack epidemic that hit our inner cities and also our suburbs. And we had what people called crack babies, which was a horrible term, but that's what was being splattered everywhere. And you had these children who were being born with cocaine dependence. And it came from the environment that was happening as the child was basically being formed. So that is an example of how the birth environment can affect the development of a child. Are we okay so far? Yes. Excellent. Then there's the chemistry. We're talking about the hormones, and I'm going to use a big word, neurotransmitters. Neuro meaning having to do with the mind, and transmit meaning sending. So these are hormones that send messages from one place to the other. Just imagine this massive, amazing, wonderful, like highway inside your brain, freeway, and there's all these cars and trucks and trains going back and forth at lightning speed. That's kind of the amazingness of the brain, but I'm going to pause because then I'm just going to go to a whole different place altogether. But having hormones, there are certain hormones that basically are centered in certain areas of the brain. And when those hormones come, they're noted for doing something because everything has a purpose, right? So you have certain hormones like something called serotonin, which it affects your mood, your appetite, your sleep. So when you have imbalances of these hormones, you end up having what we call symptoms, things that show up. I like the word manifest, that are expressed, if you want to use kind of research terms, that come out. So that's biology. Are we okay with biology? Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to pull a thread. So here's the thread. We have a mother and a father. And the mother's side has genetic history of what we call depression. And the father's side has genetic history of what we call alcoholism or alcohol dependence. And it's always been Uncle Joe likes to drink a little too much. And Auntie Susan always is sad. She's always crying at Hallmark commercials. We don't know why, okay? And these two individuals meet up in the heyday of the 1960s. And they start doing recreational drugs, LSD, marijuana, cocaine, crack, and they're together. And after a few years of doing this, they decide they're going to get married. Keep that in your head. Psycho. Psycho is your reasoning, your emotional influences, your personality. We all know that everyone has certain things about them that they're born with, that you can say, oh, you know Kweku, when he was born, he was always like that. He wouldn't sit still. He was always asking questions. We don't know why. But Amma doesn't talk. Oh, she sits in the room and reads her book. We don't know. So there are certain things that happen that we just kind of have within us. And that's what we call our personality. Some people are more impulsive. Some people tend to be more irritable. There are some people they say are Pollyannas. They were kind of born happy. They're always optimistic, and it's not a challenge, it's an opportunity. And you're like, listen, it's a challenge, it's a difficulty. I don't want it. This is your opportunity I don't like. Right? So we know that we have certain things about us that they seem to kind of come. And then we have the moods, and we have how we reason. Because there are some people who they think, for them, the world is just hard. And so when you talk to them, they always kind of like, I know, but what are you going to do? It's just hard, being an immigrant, being black. And there's some people like, I know it's hard, but we can do something about it. There's how you are seeing the world, how you learn to see the world, what was kind of inside of you. Not just the genetics, but the way your mind absorbs the world and the messages. We all have very unique ways of doing that. And there are coping mechanisms that some of us have, coping styles. Some people are out there and they're running. They feel upset, they feel mad, they feel sad. They go and start running. They go and exercise. Some people, they want to be quiet and they cook or they write. There are different ways that people have learned to cope with what's happening around them, what's happening inside them. And that is the part that we call the psycho. Now let's go back to our thread. Mom and dad, we had alcoholism and depression. They were using drugs. They get married and they have kids. They have 4 kids. The first child is the son, I'm the son, and everything seems to be okay, and I'm out there doing what I'm supposed to do. The second one is a little bit wild, another son, all over the place. And the third is a baby girl who seems to be rather quiet. She kind of stays to herself. And because her parents are busy with the 2 rambunctious sons, and she seems to be quiet and doesn't seem to bother anyone, her parents don't really give her a lot of attention, per se. They don't go and they say, how are you? How you doing? Is everything okay? They just kind of, she's fine. She's all right. She's good. But she starts to feel isolated in her own little understanding of the world. The mommy and daddy are always busy with my older brothers, but I'm kind of here. And she's already kind of quiet, so she doesn't really say that she wishes they would spend time with her. And she starts reading books. She starts kind of doing her own thing. And she's doing her own thing, but she's not too happy about it. So she just lives. Psycho. Social, meaning your environment, the people around you, what your culture says, what your culture believes, what your family says, what your family believes, what your family doesn't actually say but really says. We all have those understood rules about the way things happen, like the father always gets the big piece of meat. Now this is something I never really understood, right? At least on the continent. Because think about it, you have already grown. You are as tall as you're going to be. Why do you need the meat? This small child who has not quite grown up is getting the chicken foot. I'm confused. But it's because he's the father. And in a patriarchal society, in a patrilineal societies, the father is everything. And so he must get the best. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you've eaten enough meat in your life. This one hasn't. So give that one at least the drum. Why are you fighting over the foot? This is ridiculous. So, you know, what your culture says about the way you should live, what you know the culture says, even without being told, also affects who you are and how you deal with things and how you see things. Let's go back to our thread. So we have this girl, and now she goes to school, and she's very quiet, and she does well, but she gets bullied at school, and she can't really talk about it. And then one day, her parents get a phone call, and the phone call is that they saw some scratches, some marks right here, and it looked like she was cutting herself. And the parents are like, cutting? What? And they rush to the school, and everything's going on, and the girl is just she's crying. She just I'm sad. I'm just always sad, and I don't know why I'm always sad. And then she kind of shuts up. She can't really talk. She can't really speak the issue. And she gets evaluated, and her parents hear that she has major depressive disorder. She's depressed. And they're like, wait, I've been depressed before. No, this is different. Well, I don't get it. What I want you to do with this example is I want you to think about everything I said about the biopsychosocial. And I hope you can begin to understand how this complex construct developed end up with a child who has depression. This is not every child's story. This is not any particular child's story. I wanted to bring together some commonalities for you to understand where it is and how mental illness develops. So the biology of it. Where did we have, I think, a little time, but where did the biology of it come from for this young girl? And I said it, and anybody can say it. Just throw it out there. Her mom didn't have depression. It was in the family, right? But you're on it. You're right there. The mom had it. There was a genetic coding for it, right? So she's been cutting, and then they also discover that she's been taking some of the pills that dad has for his ankle. Where's that coming from? What specifically though? Because the kids didn't see the parents do drugs. But what did I tell you before? What did the father's family have? Alcoholism. So there was a history in the genes of substance abuse. So it was almost encoded through that genetics for that propensity towards using substances to help cope or deal. Okay? And when we talk about genetics, it's not just what comes through the system. It's also something we call, there are de novo mutations. Break it down to of new. De, of, novo, new. The Greek, meaning something new. Sometimes you can have genetic mutations that did not come through the line. They just happen. Okay? So, and then the psycho. Where's the psycho part of it? Her personality, her reasoning. Where did that come from?
Culture.
No, not necessarily. That's social, right? It can be a little difficult to tease, but the psycho is the individual. What does that mean for the people who?
The connection between the parents and the child, and the ability for the child to thrive and to be attuned by. So children usually grow up in a relationship. So when you see a baby, what do? You hug him, right? Or you smile. So they respond to that. You smile to them, they smile back. They cry. What do? You pick them up. When you don't pick them up, what happens to them? They cry and cry until they stop crying because no one picks them up. Something happens to us when this happens.
So that's part of it, right? And that speaks more to the social, but the psycho was that she was already kind of a quiet girl, right? She already was to herself, already more introverted, already not prone to talk about the stuff that was going on in her life, already kind of thinking, well, my parents don't really, so she was not the kind of girl that was going to get up and say, Mom and Dad, you need to give me some time. That was part of her personal way of dealing and looking at life. And of course, the social we've talked about. Now, all of these together create what is called a perfect storm for someone to develop a mental illness. And there are tons and tons of examples, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I just wanted to give you a kind of a bird's eye view of the biopsychosocial model and theory of mental illness, that it is, again, a complex construct of different factors that come together. Someone may get mental illness, another person in the same situation may not. So we have to be very careful when we look at mental illness and look at it in an individual perspective of an individual person within a larger context and beginning to understand where that person is coming from as we are warriors of the light.
I don't want her to sit down. Isn't she amazing?
Yeah.
So we're going to test you guys later to see if you understand. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Dr. Seri. That was amazing. So now we know a little bit better. A little bit better. Our next speaker is, I think we'll go with Dr. Rachel. Dr. Rachel Singer is a licensed psychologist, and she earned her PhD in counseling psychology from Boston College. She currently teaches doctoral students at the Chicago School for Professional Psychology in DC and works in a private practice called the Center for Anxiety and Behavioral Change, specializing in the treatment of anxiety. So, please, Dr. Rachel.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. Hello. I am so honored to go after you. What a wonderful explanation. So my name is Dr. Rachel Singer. I'm so glad you're all here today. I think it's really important that you're here and to think about all of the people that you know who are not here, but maybe there's somebody that you think they really should have come today. You get the opportunity when you leave here. You guys are already warriors of the light, right? Now you're going to be the messenger. So we're giving you some information here that maybe you can use for you. Think about who else needs to know this information. Who do you talk to? Who do you know who maybe needs a little bit of help that they're not getting right now? And then maybe you can be the person who says, hey, you know what? I think you might need a little more support, and I have some ideas. So you guys are all taking mental notes. I can see it. Does anybody here grow any plants in your house? Grow any plants outside? Yeah? So one of my favorite psychologists was someone named Carl Rogers, and he noticed something really cool. So his family grew plants, and they grew potatoes specifically. And he noticed that, in the wintertime, it's cold. He grew up in a climate where you're not planting the potatoes in the winter because they're not going to do so well. But what he noticed was that his potatoes, they would store them in the cold basement. And he noticed that even when it was wintertime, and these potatoes, they were not in the perfect space. They were not outside in the sunshine. I know we don't have any today, but they weren't outside. They weren't in nice, rich soil with lots of nutrients. But even still, he noticed that these little shoots came up from the potatoes, and they started growing in the one direction where there was a tiny little window. There's a basement, so it's down low, and a little light came in, and the plant started growing towards that light. They were like, ooh, we can get some warmth here. We know that people are, this is going to sound really weird, but people are a little bit like potato plants. This is not going to be a bumper sticker. You're not going to see this on anybody's car. But we know that people grow towards the light, right? We know that even in the worst situations, when things are difficult, people thrive. We are amazing. We are resilient, right? We are powerful. Now, we hope that everyone that we know and everyone we love, and I hope that everyone I know and everyone I love is going to have a life where they have the best situation possible, where they have all the light and nutrients and environment that they need that's going to be perfect and allow them to thrive. But we also know we don't always get to decide exactly what our situation is, right? We know that there are a lot of things that can be kind of stressful, that can make our lives really difficult. For someone who was born outside of the United States who moves here, we know there are some conditions and some things around us that can make things feel particularly challenging. You move to a new community and you're away from your family, you're away from your supports, everything is different. That's hard, right? It's hard to be somewhere new where you don't know people, where things feel unusual, where what you expect and what you're used to is not there anymore. We know that adapting to a new environment can be really challenging. And Dr. Asada and I will talk with you guys a little more in a bit about what that's like, adapting to a new environment, a new community. We know that being separated from families and from the people you love is hard. And this can be one of the most difficult pieces about immigrating to a new country. So you're away from your supports. You're away from all those things that, all those resources that you turn to. We know that moving to an environment where you may not be like some of your neighbors, you can encounter a lot of stressful things. You can encounter discrimination, you can encounter racism, you can encounter bigotry or bias. People may respond to you. They don't know you, they don't know anything about you, but based on their assumptions about you. And that can be a heavy load to carry, right? We know that there can be some of these internal factors, that some people are more predisposed. They have that kind of, that family history, that kind of internal disposition where they may just be a little bit more stressed or overwhelmed, where their mood may be a little bit lower, maybe compared to even other people in the same family. And maybe there are some fears about if you're here in this country and you don't have documentation status. That's a scary thing too, right? And to wake up each day and to carry all of those stressors is scary. It can show up in lots of different ways, the sort of mental health piece, the psychological piece. It shows up in so many different ways. It can be different for a lot of people. Some people, they notice this kind of changes in how they feel physically, right? They're getting sick a lot. They used to feel really healthy and now they don't feel that way. There's discomfort in their body, but their medical doctor says there's nothing wrong here. But you know it, you feel it. You're like, I'm stomach aches all the time. I'm always tired. My head's always pounding. I just can't get up in the mornings. So you notice some changes there. There may be changes you notice in mood. Maybe you've noticed some people around you that they just get angry so fast, like little things that shouldn't be a big deal. Their temper is really short. They may worry about things that really aren't that scary. Maybe they start to turn to substances. They start to use alcohol or substances when they're not feeling well. And it's a way of trying to maybe give themselves some distance. The world is too hard and too overwhelming, but this feels like a little bit of a break from those things. And we know that there can be a lot of problems with this. It doesn't actually make the problems go away. It can actually really impact your body in really negative ways. It can impact your relationships, but people may turn to it anyway. We also know that there's like a spectrum, right? Everybody experiences challenges. Everybody experiences sadness. Everybody experiences anger or anxiety. These are all really, really normal things. The question is, for you, maybe you have a range of times when you feel really sad and times when you feel really happy, and what feels good in that range. We know that there can also be two things we look for to decide that the problem is too big right now to just kind of handle the way we normally handle it. One is distress. How much of a problem is it? How big of a problem? You feel sad and then something changes and you feel a little bit better, that's okay. You notice that it's really taking over everything. You can't talk to your friends the way you used to. You can't go to your job the way you used to. You can't go to school the way you used to. This is where it kind of prevents us from doing something that we want to do or that we need to do. We look for these two things. How much distress does it cause somebody? How much does it prevent them from doing things that they want to or need to do? So there's a lot of people out there like me. My job is not to change anybody or fix anybody, but to talk about supports and resources. What are some of the things that we can add to make your life better? Sometimes people come in and they're worried I'm going to do something to them, that I've got like a magic button where they drop their kid off and they're like, am I going to get my kid back? Is this going to be, is this going to be a different person? We don't have any powers to change people. We don't have any powers to force somebody to do something that they don't want to do. What we do have is we have this whole set of tools. We can say, has everyone been to the dentist? They've got that whole little tray of torture devices, and they know exactly which one to pick. The dental hygienist is talking to you, and she's like, so it's very sunny, and she picks up a thing, and you're like, what are you going to do with that? She knows which tool to use, right? But you're the one who says, my teeth could really use a little cleaning. They're still your teeth. So you come to a psychologist, you come to a psychiatrist, it's your life. You say, here's the problem. And then we stand and we look together and we say, what's going on here? Can we fix this? Can we work together and maybe can we collaborate and see if we can come up with some ideas to make things better? Can we fix this together? I like to be a teammate with my patients and my clients. We try to help each other out. But sometimes people are scared to come to somebody like me. I know I'm really scary, right? They worry, what if somebody finds out that I'm here today? I don't want anyone to know there's something wrong with me. When you come to speak to somebody like me or Dr. Asade or any medical professional, your information is confidential. It's private. It does not leave that room, right? I'm not going to go out and say, guess what so-and-so told me today? I'm not going to talk about it on, live television. I'm not going to go and talk to anyone in the community. It's private. It's a safe space. Okay, that's important to know. We also know that if you don't trust somebody and you don't feel comfortable, you're not going to go and talk to them. So it's kind of like maybe one of your family members knows what size shoe you are, but you send them to the shoe store and they pick out the wrong thing, right? We've got a few kids here. Would you send your parents out to go shoe shopping for you? No. Mom or dad, they're gonna pick out the wrong style, right? Maybe it's the right size, but woo, why would they choose that? Ugh. Or maybe it's the right style, and you're like, oh, this is great, but you put it on, and you're like, oh, this doesn't fit, right? A therapist has got to be a good fit, too. I may know the tools, but you may go, ooh, I don't want to talk to her. Give me somebody else. That's okay, right? You have to feel safe, and you have to feel comfortable, and you have to feel like it's a good fit. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time because I know we have we've got a little more time. Good, okay. The really, really important thing that I want to pass along to you, and that you guys are now you're the messengers, right? You're going to pass this along. Talking to somebody like me is a really brave thing to do, right? It's not a sign of weakness or a sign that you're a coward. It's a sign that you recognize that you want to change something in your life, that you want it to be different, and that you're willing to take that on yourself. You can't really be brave without facing something that's a little bit scary. We tend to avoid things that are uncomfortable, right? We tend to avoid things that make us feel frightened. If you were driving here today and a giant sinkhole opened up in the road, you're not going to be like, oh, let me put the pedal to the metal and keep going, I'm going to speed up. You're going to be like, you're going to stop the car and you're going to be like, we're getting out of here. That's a really good survival instinct you all would have, right? I respect that. But the roads are the roads, and sometimes they don't get fixed the way we want. So sometimes they have little potholes, right? The roads are not always smooth sailing. If you see a pothole this big on the road, are you going to stop the car and be like, oh, we got to get out of here, this pothole, I don't know. You're going to be like, oh man, the roads, they should fix that thing. You're going to keep going where you were going anyway, right? Sometimes our anxiety or our depression make us think that we cannot do something, that we cannot follow through on our life's goals, and so we stop and we turn the other direction. When I talk with somebody in my office, we try to figure out the difference between an emergency, what feels like you're physically unsafe, and what feels like an overwhelming situation, but you're still pretty safe, right? We don't talk about things that are too hard too fast. If somebody can't swim, we don't take them to a pool, drop them in the deep end of the pool and say, I'll see you in an hour, have fun. Right? What would happen if you did that? They might drown. Let's say they do get to the side of the pool somehow. Is that person ever going to want to go near water again? Are they ever going to want to take a bath or a shower? They're going to be like, I remember the last time. Nope. I'm just going to be dirty the rest of my life. It'll be fine. So when someone comes to me and we talk about something scary or stressful, we get in the shallow end, right? Maybe day one, we just take our little toe and we just dip it in the water. We talk about something in pieces that are manageable, that you can handle. And then we build up towards that challenge that's really important to you and you want to be able to do it anyway, but it takes a lot of bravery to do it, right? I like talking to people like this, but even still right now, you can't see it. My stomach is doing this. It's like I just drank a lot of soda and it's all fizzling around in there, and all little butterflies. If you told me tomorrow that I was going to be on live television and talk to everybody in the world, I might faint, right? I might pass out, even though I like talking to people and I know this is important. So step by step, maybe first, maybe last night, this is hypothetical, I'm not going to say it actually happened. Maybe it's me standing in front of my mirror saying, oh, I'm Dr. Singer, and maybe I practice in small doses before I come and speak to you all, right? And that helps me build up my bravery so I can be here today, right? You tell me tomorrow I'm going to talk to 300 people, I might go, okay. So we don't do the scariest thing first, right? Sometimes the scariest thing is going to someone and saying, things are not going okay, right? Maybe that person is somebody you know really well. Maybe somebody that you know really well is really, they want to talk to you, but they're scared about your reaction. So if someone comes and they talk to us and they say, things are not good, we don't want to go, what's wrong with you, right? Fix it, because they were brave. They came to you and they said, something is not right. So we want to let them know, hey, you're brave. Thank you for telling me. And then you want to say, let's see, do we have the right tools right here? Or do we need to go and get some new tools? Can we figure out some new strategies that might help you a little bit better? We'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes too, but there are just a couple of things that I might want to point out. Times when you might want to seek out a little bit of extra support. Maybe you've tried talking to people you already know. You've talked to your family members, you talked to your barista at Starbucks. I don't know, they seem kind of busy. I don't know if they're the best listeners. You've talked to someone who does your nails, or you talk to that person on your street. Maybe that helps. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's enough. Maybe you've talked to all of those people and you still feel like something is not right. That might be a good time to say, who else can I talk to, right? You can start by talking with your doctor. Your primary care doctor can say, everything's looking good inside. Let's find you someone who can really help. We've got some great resources in this county. And I've gotten to talk a little bit to some of our amazing, our county executives and Department of Health and Human Services. We have some great resources here. They are waiting for you, and they are ready to help, and they're ready to support. We want to make a safe space for other people to come and talk to us as well. Not being mean or judging or making fun of people if something is not going well, but really validating them and saying, this is okay. This is scary, but it will get better, because it can and it does. It's also really important to know that you're not alone. A lot of times it feels like I'm the only one here. Scary. But we know that there are many, many other people who are dealing with, what you are dealing with too. We also want to talk to somebody if we have worries about safety, right? Dr. Asade was talking about cutting. If someone is harming themselves, they're harming somebody else. Maybe even scarier, they say, I don't know if I can make it. I don't know if this world is for me. We want to take that really, really seriously, because what we know, and this is a little scary, we cannot really predict if someone is going to take their life or not. There's no future, when I got my degree, they didn't hand me a crystal ball and say, okay, now you know the future. We don't necessarily know for certain if someone's going to be safe or not, right? So we really want to make sure we listen really carefully, and we take this very seriously. So if someone is harming themselves, they're harming somebody else, they're worried about their own safety, or you're worried about their safety, talk to somebody. Find the right person to talk to, and they will help out. I want to make sure our other panelists have some time to talk too, but I would love to answer questions later, and I think we'll have some time for some collaboration a little bit. But